Hello, this is Danielle Channels Planets. I'm Danielle Meyer, an archetypal astrologer, and I have a PhD in Jungian and archetypal studies. I offer private readings. If you'd like one, please check out my website, daniellechannelsplanets.com. And today I'm going to be talking about the full moon in Scorpio that's happening on May 1st. And I will also be covering it tomorrow on Thursday as well. So what I just want to look at first is the dynamic between the sun and the moon. And as you can tell, anytime the sun and the moon are opposite, we have a full moon. So a culmination of the past 6 months when we had a new moon back in November during Scorpio season. So if you think back to what was going on in your life last October, November, what changes, were you hoping to plant seeds for, and what hopefully has come to a culmination at this point. In Scorpio energy is typically around, intense transformation and change. Power dynamics, the butterfly shedding its skin to become a winged being, phoenix rising from ashes. So I don't know, sometimes at a full moon it can feel like maybe we are turning to ashes, not necessarily phoenix rising, but that could be a good reframe right now, is to, just because the phoenix rises doesn't mean that it's comfortable. Maybe the whole fucking journey is uncomfortable. Maybe the burning up is actually more comfortable than the rising of the phoenix. So, other images of Scorpio include the scorpion and the eagle. Scorpion being a symbol of, it has its shell, and an eagle being kind of an exalted image of Scorpio and its full culmination of its power. And then, of course, we have the sun in Taurus. So the sun in Taurus is ruled by Venus, and it can be a time of focusing on money, focusing on what we value, focusing on relationships, focusing on art and creativity and beauty. Full moon kind of punches a little pack, packs a punch when it comes to Taurus. So anytime that's the moon opposes Taurus sun, and it's in Scorpio. I mean, these two, we're talking about like Venus ruled, and when Venus is in detriment, it's in Scorpio. So there is a natural opposition between these two. I think it can kind of bring up like, it helps Taurus energy check itself. Like where maybe we have gone a little bit too far into some of the beauty extremes, or worrying about what people think about us, or our appearance. And I think the Scorpio full moon can be like, none of that fucking matters. That's not what's important here. That needs to shed. That needs to go. That's not working here. And you can retain what's core, what's essential here, Taurus. For all of us. But the moon is really wanting us to shed skin. And it's not only that. Around the full moon, throughout this week, we are still in a Venus trine Pluto. And Venus is it's a very similar energy to what these sun and moon signs represent. I mean, this is also, Venus and Pluto, Venus and Pluto. So we're getting this like growth and shedding of the skin, around what we've been valuing and what we've been finding worth in. And all of a sudden we have to confront some shit from the unconscious that we just can't take with us anymore. And I think my best advice for this is that if you have something, that's really intense coming up in your life that you need to confront, like, that could be super life-changing if you don't. And that is to draw us towards the depths of ourselves. We wouldn't turn towards God or spirit or Jesus or divinity if we didn't have a crisis. If everything was heaven on earth and we lived in peace and harmony, which is what Taurus and Venus would love, there would be no journey to find it. So I do think that the myth of Psyche and Eros is appropriate right now. Also, just because Mars and Saturn are still in a conjunction, so we are sorting the seeds. We are having to go through a lot of tasks of, each day a different kind of barrier or dilemma put in front of us that we have to navigate around. And if we show up, then nature also shows up, or spirit also shows up and conspires to help us. But we have to take that first step right now. In the myth of Psyche and Eros, Psyche's betrothed to Eros, but she can't look at him, and she does. So then Aphrodite takes Eros away. And then Psyche has to go through all of these tasks to get back to Eros. And they're literally impossible tasks set forth for her by Aphrodite. She would not be able to complete them at all if nature and the divine didn't show up in each task, which it does. And so I think that that's important to remember right now is like, if your life's falling apart, if a relationship's falling apart, if you don't know the way forward, if you have all of these paths that you could choose from right now and you don't know and you're at a fork in the road or a major crossroads, I truly think that we're meant to grasp to a spiritual path and a spiritual discipline to guide us. That we need to remember that we're not alone. We're not just a soul, lonely, scared, fragile ego. And hopefully we're not too fragile right now. I would hope that we're actually feeling quite strong or maybe empowered on our path. But things might be happening with a lot of the outer planets talking that forces us to realign with our spiritual path right now, or the path of self, or the path of authenticity, or the path of the Holy Spirit, or the, however that comes through each unique person, patch of witch, I think that we need those divine images of the transcendent so that our ego doesn't feel so annihilated. And not that we want to be inflated by the transcendent, but just to be in relationship to it and to have bowling, you have the bumpers, you throw the bowling ball down and have some freaking bumpers to make sure that you hit a pin. So I think that's what spiritual images and a spiritual practice can do for us. It helps create a buffer or bumpers for us to be like, no, I'm enough. I can do this. I'm a good person. People like me. It's okay if I change. It's okay if I'm seen. And not everything's going to fall apart. But when we don't have a spiritual practice and we don't have a connection to the divine, it's basically like just closing your eyes and throwing the bowling ball backwards, hoping that you're going to hit a strike. And it's just literally impossible. So do yourself a favor. I think one of the best boundaries to have is to try to start your day with something. Usually if you start your day with anything that's not scrolling and some kind of task or some kind of inner reflective practice, then that typically sets the tone for the day. So first 5-10 minutes of waking up, just writing a dream down, closing your eyes, reflecting on how you feel, saying a prayer, whatever it may be, that can really help right now as a navigational tool for feeling lost, feeling uncertain, feeling scared, feeling panic, feeling overwhelmed, feeling shame, feeling disempowered. All of these really intense things that can come up around a Scorpio full moon, particularly Scorpio being a water sign from the underworld, that these emotions aren't bad. And I think we need to remember that when we go through change or crisis, that it's okay when these feelings come up. Can we not get attached to them and let them flow through us? So can you eat something? Can you drink water? Can you still go on a walk outside? Can you call a friend and not completely collapse? So one of my favorite things about astrology is that it helps bring the element of time into what's occurring. And I think it also helps the ego to not collapse. So when we know that these things are going on, we can say, okay, this is the deeper meaning here. This is a deeper pattern unfolding in my life. And it's kind of like a surrendering or a letting go. Not that we are controlled by any means, not that we are lack autonomy. It's just that we are participating with and in relationship to larger divine energies and forces. And so we need to maintain a strong, healthy attitude in the midst of these things that can be out of our control. So there's a dynamic going on between what's in our control and what's outside of our control. And that's a big piece of Pluto and Scorpio, is power and control and our instincts. And realigning to our intuition. And so how do we navigate the depths without crumbling, without falling, and knowing that the descent is a necessary aspect of transformation where we can come out on the other side empowered by our journey. So whatever is falling apart, if you feel some kind of skin shedding, if you feel exposed, raw, vulnerable, yeah, that can feel really threatening to the ego. That can feel really threatening to our sense of self. The Sun and Pluto have been in a square throughout this week, and they will through the full moon, using a like an 8-degree orb, but they're still within 7 degrees, you know. So yeah, I think that the Sun has really been to the underworld and is getting transformed. And by this full moon, it's kind of like, what was this all for? So throughout this week and leading up to the full moon, we might actually be doing a lot of emotional processing before we even get to the full moon. And by the time we get there on Friday, the ship might be ready to sail its new course. We might come to understand like what this clearing or transformation was all for. And I think a hint here is that whatever, again, gets pulled out from underneath your feet, or, you know, has come to an end, or what's culminated here, I think definitely points towards realigning with some kind of spiritual path and realigning with, your relationship to the divine. And so if something wasn't authentic to you, if something wasn't a relationship or a job or even a habit, those things can definitely be forced to shed at this time. Pluto being force, and the shedding as well, and the Venus being, you know, relationships and values, and our sense of beauty. And so let's see what else is going on. Jupiter will be in a strong square with Saturn and Mars. And so actually it's separating from its strong square to Saturn. It's still within 10 degrees. But a Saturn-Mars conjunction that is still unfolding can be asking us to have discipline. And we can't fully release all of the energy that we want to right now at the time of the full moon. But we can have a strategy and a plan. And Saturn wants to slow us down and create necessary boundaries or restrictions that help funnel the energy of Mars towards our goals, towards reconstructing our life somehow. So this can be an empowering dynamic for Mars, especially the enthusiasm, the grandiosity, the extra punch from Jupiter that enlivens Mars. And Mars will actually start to get closer and closer to that square. And so moving into next week after the full moon, we might feel more ready to go with implementing some kind of change. So if this week's feeling extra heavy, extra emotional, I think that all of that's going to start to lift after the full moon, essentially because of the days leading up to the full moon. The moon is in aspect to Saturn on the 28th, which was yesterday. And then it's an aspect to Saturn and Mars, which is just heavy and difficult, but, you know, emotionally, it can just bring up a lot. A T-square with Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter. So just making space to feel emotions on Wednesday and taking care of yourself, you know, feeling emo, whatever it is, letting the emotions pass through you. They might be kind of intense. And then continuing into Thursday, the moon will be opposite Mercury and Chiron. So, you know, it's heading right into like another wound coming up. And like, what are we, how are we going to face this wound? Like, how is this is a part of our change, and it's demanding, not only do we transform, but there's a woundedness and a vulnerability around our transformation. And us communicating and showing up as ourselves and speaking our truth and being seen and expressing who we are and what we think and these ideas that we have. And now that, Uranus and Mercury, or Uranus and Venus have moved into Gemini. Mercury is the ruler of Gemini. And so the moon passing over that on Thursday can definitely bring up some creative change and some creative ways of thinking about how to handle some wound that we have. But it always gets poked. You know, it could be around money, it could be around insecurities, it could be around your sense of autonomy and authority in the world. Whatever it may be, that's Thursday. And then moving into the full moon, the moon then culminates in an opposition with the sun. And so by then I feel like we've kind of been through the ringer with the moon opposing all these planets. And I'm thinking by Friday and by the weekend, we're going to be hopefully feeling a little bit better, a little bit more momentum, a little bit easier. Now, you know, with Mercury and Chiron in a exact conjunction on that day, I think there still can be this kind of like, can I trust myself? Can I trust my thoughts? Is this really what I want? There, you know, there could be a tendency to second guess ourselves and where we're trying to go into action and what we're trying to do. And by applying some kind of healing that needs some kind of like trust in oneself. How do we trust in ourselves? How do we trust in what we're thinking and what we're doing? Chiron can be doubt around Mercury. It can be projection, doubt, like kind of worry, or especially with, you know, Pluto's in a loose square to those, but it will get stronger. So Mercury will end up moving into a stronger square with Pluto. So there's something that Mercury is starting to dial in on now about the transformation and communicating this transformation and kind of being like, hey, like, how are you going to show up now? Like, what are you going to do? Is this really what we think? Is this all just words, or are we really going to face this? And oh, we're going to face this. And that's what this full moon is saying. The full moon ruled by Scorpio. Well, rather, the ruling planet of Scorpio is Pluto. And so the moon and Pluto are talking. And Pluto is also talking to freaking everything else. Like literally everything else. So Pluto is like, you can't ignore what's coming up around this change, around this transformation. It is forced upon you. It's deep, it's dark, it's heavy, there's a wound, there's a complex, it can be projected, there's power dynamics, there can be betrayal, there can be all sorts of our deepest, darkest fears that are arising in our lives that we need to confront. That is also supporting the change of us becoming our more authentic individual selves and stepping into a more authentic expression of that. So this is really powerful, heavy, outer planet shifts and changes, and the moon is getting a workup this week. Again, Pluto as the ruler of the moon, it's connected in an aspect to that Chiron Mercury. It's connected in an aspect to the sun. So our sense of self, our sense of identity, our potential in the world. It's connected to Uranus and Venus. And it's also continuing to be in a sextile to Neptune and Saturn. We need a spiritual discipline to navigate this transformation. It is very important for us to connect to our unique spiritual path. And I think that it's something that we can't just do once. We have to commit to it on a daily basis. And Saturn can be kind of sobering for Neptune. Neptune can be transcendent and want to do drugs and drink or ayahuasca or spiritual practice, be enraptured, be inflated by, you know, a spiritual image. And Saturn won't let that. It's not part of the process. It's blocking that right now and saying, no, we need sobriety. No, we need tradition. No, we need something that's accessible while we're doing practical daily things. And it needs to be woven into the fabric of our practical, boring, mundane reality on a daily basis. And so during times of crisis and change, I think it's actually maybe easier to fall back on your go-to spiritual images that just work. It's kind of like with astrology, I fall back on using all of the planetary archetypes because they're the most grounded. And so similarly in times like this, it's like, what is the most spiritual image or spiritual practice that grounds you, that you know it just will? Anytime you're at rock bottom, anytime that you're in a crisis, this thing always works. What is that for you? That's what's needed right now. So yeah, let me know how that's going for you. Let me know what's coming up. Let me know if you want to hear more about one thing or another. Any comments or feedback are always welcome as I start my channel and I get this rolling and I'm trying to pump out content to see what everybody likes. So feel free to drop a comment if it's resonating with you or not. Okay, and please like and subscribe if you do like it. All right, thanks everyone. See you later.